Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Marfa Presents Big by Brick. This is Malika, and I am in a very different setting today, as you can tell. I'm in Singapore. As you know, I come to Singapore very often, every single month for a week. And today, I'm so excited to be filming a podcast episode here with somebody who's very, very special. I met her when I was here in February last month through a very dear client of mine. And the brief that I was given was that you need to meet her. She is awesome at what she does. She exactly knows what she does in Singapore. She is in real estate like myself, but been doing it for decades. And somebody who's well spoken, knows how to make the right relationships, and somebody I should just connect with straight away. And that's all I know about her. Her name is Juliet Stannard, and she's here with us today. Welcome to the episode.
Thank you, Malika. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to our discussion.
I think I met you at 1880.
Yeah.
The last time I was here. And we instantly talked about, because I know for a fact that I deal with Singapore expats who want to either own a piece of Dubai to relocate or just for investment. And they do that because in Singapore, they love this city so much, but they cannot buy a house since they have to pay 60% stamp duty. And then I asked you, so how do you deal with this? And you're like, you do more of renting then while helping them to buy houses if they want.
Yes. So I don't know if I can give you a bit of background of myself now.
Yes.
So I've been in Singapore since 1993.
Wow.
So 32 years this year. I arrived on National Day, August the 9th in 1993 from Hong Kong. So I was in Hong Kong before. And I've been in real estate in Singapore for 26 years. So my background was I set up a relocations business back in 1999. And all the real estate we did back then was through CityProp. And CityProp is the agency that I am one of the owners. There's three of us who own the agency. And I'm one of the directors. So I've been doing real estate ever since. Back in those days, you didn't have to have a license. It was a bit of cowboy land. Anybody could be a real estate agent in Singapore. So obviously there's been a lot of changes along the way. So our core business is rentals for expats coming into Singapore and people moving within Singapore. So that's anything from apartments to landed properties to good class bungalows, which are the big landed properties. And we represent tenants, we represent landlords, and then we also do sales as well in the residential market. So we also represent buyers and sellers as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time of doing this.
Yeah.
So you've really seen most of the real estate cycles that have existed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. I did not even know what a landed property meant because in Dubai, we say villas and townhouses and apartments.
Right.
In Singapore, you say condos and landed and good class bungalows, which I had no idea what it meant. Now I know the Singapore terminology, where it's a Singapore vocab for good class bungalows is like you've arrived.
So there's 2,200 good class bungalows in Singapore. And only Singaporeans are allowed to own them.
Own it, correct.
Right? So they're properties that are in land sizes that are larger than 15,000 square feet.
Wow.
So and there's certain streets and roads that are zoned for good class bungalows. So they're kind of the properties that Singaporeans aspire to own. And what we have seen in the last few years, of course, the influx of mainland Chinese who have come in and bought family offices in. They bought a lot of money into Singapore. A lot of them have become permanent resident and then become citizens, and then also bought good class bungalows because that's the only way that they can actually do it. So we have seen a bit more of an increase of ownership with more Chinese owners.
It's very interesting, and I think anybody that I speak to who is looking to get something in Dubai from Singapore, they usually get inclined towards a landed property, and the simple reason is because they can't have one in Singapore.
Right.
So it's an aspirational thing, and in Dubai you can easily get one for the price of less than the price of a condo in Singapore. So they're like, if we are coming to Dubai, we are going to live in a villa or a townhouse or like a landed property because they are not used that much space.
Yeah.
So for them, it's aspirational.
Yeah. And for people who are renting properties, quite a few people do rent landed properties.
Yes.
So semi-detached or townhouses,
Right.
or just a landed property in a smaller square foot plot of land. But again, they're quite scarce because only Singaporeans, if they own a landed property, they're only the only ones who are allowed to rent them out. So if a permanent resident owns a landed property, they're not allowed to rent them out.
Oh, wow.
Unless they get special permission if they're posted overseas for a 2 or 3 year posting. But it's only Singaporeans, which is why on the likes of Sentosa Island, I'm sure you've been to and seen all the amazing houses that are on Sentosa. So a lot of those, they're on a leasehold, and a lot of people could buy those and become permanent residents and buy them. So again, there was a lot of money that came in over the last 20 years from when the land was developed. But only Singaporeans who own those houses can rent them out. So you do see a lot of them that are empty, sitting with Ferraris and Bentleys outside. So it appears to be there's a lot on the market, but actually there's very few that are available on the rental market.
That's very, very interesting. And I think Singapore has such a wide range of options, the limited but wide range. And one thing that I'm at Mandala, and the one thing I love is the shop houses here in Singapore. They are so beautiful. Yeah. And these people, they just own and they buy the shop house and then convert them into whatever that they please. Are there also places where you can live in a shop house? Like in that?
Yeah. There's quite a few that are residential. So you've got Emerald Hill, which is the main, comes off Orchard Road. There's some stunning shop houses there. Beautiful, beautiful. And they rent anywhere from sort of $10,000 to $15,000, $20,000 a month if they've been renovated. And you've got Blair Road, Everton Road, Cairnhill Road, where you've got shop houses that are residential. Right. And again, they're huge because they're very narrow, but they go up 3 stories. So there are some amazing
And are they in demand? Like people aspire to rent
Some people, they do. It's certainly an experience.
It is. It is an experience. I think in Dubai we don't have something like that. I think it's because we're only 2 decades old in terms of our infrastructure, and Singapore has been there since forever. Also, Singapore has water surrounding it. The land is so limited that you do the best you can with whatever you have. Yeah. We are a desert, so we can expand to however we like, so we don't have that scarcity yet. Yeah. We do have less supply of villas and townhouse or landed properties, but we can build more and we can expand. So I think that's when it differs. So I think in Dubai, when anybody from Singapore comes, they say that they want to live in a sea view apartment. Like that's the dream, or like a landed property with like a golf course view. Because that's something they cannot get in Singapore. They can get something else as much.
Well, they can. There's one area where you can live and you have a golf course view, and that's on Sentosa.
Is it?
Lakeshore view. So it overlooks the golf course.
Oh, wow.
And there's some landed properties along there.
Stunning.
Yeah, very nice.
Amazing. and people, only Singaporeans can
own them. Well, in Sentosa, foreigners can own them, but they become a PR by doing so.
And is that still a thing?
But so they do. And foreigners do, if they can buy land, they will. And there are some foreigners who are exempt from stamp duties, because that's the big thing here. Obviously, we have the additional buyer stamp duties that are in place to stop property hoarding. That's why the stamp duties have been brought in. So the government do kind of restrict land ownership and property ownership. Because, again, back in the day, 20, 25 years ago, you would get, when the market was going crazy and a lot of the developments weren't built. Right. So people would be buying and flipping options as soon as they'd purchased a property. So they'd be flipping within 2 weeks. So they put in these restrictions to stop
the change in the market.
And to stop property hoarding. So Singaporeans, and there's 5 countries that are exempt from stamp duty if they buy here, and that's passport holders with the United States, Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, and Liechtenstein. So they all have trade treaties with Singapore. Right. And they are classed as buying the same as a Singaporean. So they don't have to pay extra stamp duty.
And they can buy whatever they like?
No, they can buy apartments, no problem. You can only buy landed property if you're a permanent resident. So if they're not a permanent resident and they're foreign, then they cannot buy landed.
And have you seen a lot of people from these nationalities, these passports, to have bought?
The US, definitely, yes. Not so many of the other passports.
With the US,
With the US.
Sons of Americans who are moving to Singapore, is it?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing an increase in people from the United States coming over.
Very interesting. I think what people are scared about in Dubai is that the laws change very often, but they usually change to attract a lot more people to relocate to Dubai because we have something called the 2040 urban plan in place. Again, we're not that big. We do want to put us on the map and want to be the greatest city in the world. So they want to attract a lot more talented people and millionaires around the world to settle down bases in Dubai. So we're 3.8 million people now. We're wanting to be 7.2 in 2040 and 5.2 by 2030. Meaning that a lot more laws are in place, like the Golden Visa, and it's being easier and easier day by day to grab that 10-year PR in Dubai. I do not know much, but I do feel like in Singapore, it's the opposite, where it's getting even more difficult for people to stay, from what I know, when I talk to my clients. Have you seen a trend of the government being more strict on people settling their bases in the city?
So again, Singapore is a small island. There are currently just over 6 million people here. Varies between 5.9 to 6 million. And about, in that number, about 1 to 1.5 million are foreigners. So including employment pass holders, work pass holders, student pass holders, and other different visas. So the government, again, they want to grow Singapore, but they have to do it in a very measured way because it's a small country. We are land scarce. Singapore is an amazing place to live. So we do... a lot of people do want to live here. Lots of different nationalities come here and want to work here and live here and bring their families up here. Overall, in the last 5 years, we're only down by about 3,000 employment pass holders. There's about 250,000 of employment pass holders.
Oh, wow.
We're only down by about 3,000 from numbers from 2020 to 2024. So, but we've got a lot more work pass holders. So they're encouraging more work pass holders, which is a slightly different criteria.
Right.
So they did bring in a new structure for applications for employment pass holders about a year ago. So it is a little bit more difficult. You have to qualify for age, obviously income, and companies have various criteria whereby they have to employ a certain number of Singaporeans to then be able to employ foreigners.
Yes.
So it's carefully controlled. But Lawrence Wong, who's the Prime Minister, does want to grow Singapore, but obviously they have to be quite careful with population control.
And do you think that has had an effect with properties and selling real estate? Because a lot of people who might have the EPs and the one pass holders, for example, they are earning decent salary to be able to afford a house if they want one, but then they cannot if they do not have the PR. And I had one conversation recently when I was here on my last trip, and one person had the one pass and he was earning quite decent salary. And he's like, Malik, I'm starting my family and I'm having a kid, which is amazing. And he said that having a house and a car is basic. And the reason I might, and he absolutely adores Singapore, he thinks it's convenient. He loves the idea of going to Thailand and a Vietnam and a Bali so often with the family. But he just wants some stability, and just the idea of not being able to own a house and having a childhood home for the potential kid that might come through, he is now looking at Dubai. Have you seen or have you had those conversations with your clients as well, or is this?
The majority of people who come into work in Singapore, who are foreigners, come in for shorter term visas. So they come in for 2 to 3 years on employment pass visas. So the majority will not be looking to buy necessarily. And if they do want to invest in Singapore real estate, what I tend to advise a lot, quite a few people who want to do that, is you rent where you want to live, but you invest in a property. So say a 2-bedroom apartment in Robertson Quay, for example, because that will give you a better yield. And you can invest into the real estate market. But because if you wanted to buy somewhere that you wanted to live in, so if you have a family of, say, 4 and you want to live in a larger property, you may not be able to afford that because real estate is expensive here.
Right.
So a 2-bedroom apartment in the central areas will be about a 1.5 million, 1 to 1.5 million, depending
what would the
where
size
it is.
be?
Anywhere from sort of 600 square feet to 900 square feet.
For a 2-bedroom?
Maybe, yeah. So you're looking at approximately 1.5 million Singapore dollars.
And the one bed would be how big?
One bed's anywhere from 400 to 600 square feet. Yeah. So if people want to kind of invest into Singapore and the long-term growth, because there is really only one way that the property prices will go long-term, and that is upwards, because Singapore is scarce,
Yes,
right?
100%.
So there's only certain, and especially in the central core regions, they're not replicated anywhere else. So if you're investing in districts 9, 10, 11, which are the core areas where Orchard Road is, Tanglin, Holland Village area, kind of Bukit Timah around there, there's only certain finite number of properties that will be there.
Interesting.
So a lot of other Asian nationalities will also see Singapore as a long-term safe investment, which is why we do see a lot of money that's basically invested into Singapore, because it's parked and seen as a solid, consistent, safe place to leave the money.
That's awesome. I think when people relocate to Dubai as well, and they come to me because I help them relocate to Dubai as opposed to Singapore, like you, they're like, they have been to Dubai probably once or twice. Now, Dubai is big yet small in a very weird way, meaning that you have something for everyone. So if you're looking for green and clean and quiet like Singapore, you're looking at Dubai Hills, for example, which is the Singapore favorite. If you're looking at hustle and bustle, you're looking at downtown. If you're looking at a family space, you're looking at Emirates Hills, Springs, Meadows, Lakes, landed properties, right? But they're like, let's just buy. And I'm like, no, you do not know Dubai enough to then put down such a big investment. And I give the same advice as you do, which is let's rent where you think you could live, near your office, near the child's school. And then let's invest somewhere where the money might appreciate sooner. And then once you have understood Dubai and where you would potentially want to set up your bases, we can then use that money and deploy that capital to then invest, which is very similar. But you did mention that some things appreciate and yield more than other areas. In Dubai, I know what's a sweet spot. Is there a sweet spot for Singapore in terms of investment, like a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom or something like that?
I would always say to somebody investing in property, I mean, a 2-bedroom, yes. I think worldwide, 2-bedroom properties are probably the sweetest spot because it's probably the easiest in terms of renting out, because you can either have a single or a couple or a small family in a 2-bedder. But there are certain properties that are, and it's very much condominium specific here. So you can have one condominium that will be much harder to find a property. If it's a 3 or 4-bedroom spacious unit, those are getting harder and harder to find.
Correct.
So if, there are some condominiums that are much more popular and maybe better yields than other condominiums that have maybe, there might be one that's got, say, 80 properties in it, and then another one's got 300. So, it's very much condo specific here as well, and street by street. One street can be much more in demand and a much more prestigious street than another one next door to it. It's very, every area is very unique here as well. Probably much like Dubai.
I love the streets of Singapore, by the way. We're obsessed with Arab Amoy, like
Yeah.
Duxton Hill. You could just walk around and hop onto a cafe or a restaurant and just have a really good time. Do another bar. It's like a very London vibe, but a lot more soul to it. I adore it. I think in Dubai, I have seen this trend where I think in Dubai, a 1 million dirham property, or let's say a 360,000 Sing property, is the most movable because it's the entry point for you to be able to buy a house.
Yeah.
And you're looking at a 1-bed, which is 760, 800 square feet. So a lot of people who are on the average salary in Dubai can put a mortgage down because Dubai is 90% expats. We're only 10% locals, and anybody and everybody can buy a house with the same exact rules. So if I'm looking at an average salary of even, let's say, 3,000 Sing, I'm able to mortgage a 360,000 Sing property.
Wow.
With a 20% down payment, a normal. So a lot more people who are in this category just want to have a house. In Dubai, people come from all walks of life. It's very, very diverse, like Singapore. But people do a lot of jobs that are not paid that well. So for them to be able to afford a house is like the biggest achievement. So the biggest movable thing, I think, is the 1 million dirham 1-bedroom. It flies off the shelf, like flies off, and it's crazy. But in terms of Singapore, I think a lot of families are relocating to Singapore as opposed to young single people from this special city, meaning that they're coming with a wife and maybe the 2 kids and a house helper. So they're looking at 3, 4, 5 bedders, and then anything above 3 becomes a duplex or becomes a landed property. And in Dubai, every apartment building will probably only have 6, 7, less than 10, 15 units of 3 beds. And all will be 2 beds and 1 beds. The supply is so limited, like Singapore, potentially, that the demand is so high that those yield the highest return, which is like a recent shift because families are relocating as opposed to just investing in Dubai for like young couples and young families. So it's very interesting to see that contrast.
Well, the Singapore government, again, really encourages home ownership.
Yeah.
And again, Lee Kuan Yew, who is the visionary, who is the founder of Singapore, who's just an amazing, incredible person, he set the foundations. And we have CPF here, which I'm sure you've heard of, which is the Central Provident Fund. So Singaporeans can use their money that they pay into CPF. They can use it and have various different loans and eligibility, depending if they're married with children. So they can buy into the government subsidised housing, which is the Housing Development Board, so HDBs. So you might have heard this term.
I have seen those houses
HDBs.
as well here and there.
So they're the ones that have all the colours on the side of them. So 80% of Singaporeans will live in HDBs throughout Singapore, whether it's the central regions or the new towns that are kind of outer regions. They're less expensive than private housing, obviously, and they're all 99-year lease. So HDBs are all 99-year lease because the land will eventually go back to the government. So private properties, a lot of them are freehold. So again, that's another thing that Singaporeans in particular will aspire to buy is the freehold apartments and condominiums. More and more of them are being sold as leasehold now, even if developers buy an older condominium. Because again, Singapore is not that old, not much older than Dubai. So we're only coming up for 60 years.
Wow.
So a lot of the properties are 99-year leasehold. So none of them have actually ever got to the end of the 99-year lease.
Yes.
So what developers tend to do is again, in Singapore, if properties are coming up to 30 years old, 35 years old, they're viewed as being quite old. So we have another term here called en bloc.
En bloc.
Yeah. EN-BLOC, so French word. En bloc. So what it means is that if a development is getting around 30, 35, maybe 40 years old, if 80% of the owners agree to put the development up for tender to be sold, then the whole building will be put up for tender. And a developer will then bid for that block, that whole plot, the building.
Right.
And it depends where the market is. If the market's not that great, the private market, then owners of apartments in an en bloc building or a building that's been put up for development can actually make a lot more money per apartment, per square footage, selling it to a developer than they could if it was sold on the private market. So a lot of people over the years have made a lot of money from investing into older properties that then go en bloc. And then they're sold to developers. And they will then, even if it's a freehold property or freehold land, the developer can actually then design and put a new building up, but they will then sell it as a new 99-year leasehold. So the land will always revert back to the developer rather than... So they don't sell it as freehold. And freehold properties are about 10 to 15% more expensive at the quantum price than a leasehold. So it very much depends, because if you buy a new leasehold property, you can get a better rental yield than if you buy a freehold. So
there's multiple nuances to it.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting. This en bloc, this is so cool. Yeah. I don't think Dubai has that yet. We're not that old, to be fair. Yeah. We might have that in the future.
Well, yeah.
But we have a lot of land. And based on that, I think in Dubai, what really is fascinating is that we have 60% more off-plan sales than secondary sales. So the resale value is higher. However, the volume of transactions is way higher in off-plan. Only because we are 3.8 million people, we might have 720-ish thousand houses only in total. So we need a lot more houses for the anticipated population growth in the future. So a lot more of what I sell is sand and the vision of what that will become in the next 3 years, which is called off-plan under construction properties. That's what Dubai is famous for. So you buy at a very cheap price point, which is market or below market. You pay an interest-free payment plan for 3 years or even after the handover. And then you potentially make a lot more money during the time after handover, when you still have to pay to the developer. Is that something very common in Singapore as well? Do you have a few off-plan projects?
There's a lot of off-plan projects. Yeah,
wow.
yeah. Singaporeans, again, love to own property because they're brought up with, home ownership is seen as a positive thing. So they do love to own properties. So a lot of them will buy off-plan. So a lot of the new launches you'll see, which are out of the central regions, so in the heartlands, you will see the showrooms will be packed, and when they launch, they'll be sold out within days, weeks.
Oh, wow.
But here, developers tend to actually build the future price into the off-plan launch price. So you're actually paying a higher PSF price if you're buying off-plan than if you're buying a resale development that's next to where the off-plan
That is so
is coming up.
interesting.
Yeah, so resale is always cheaper to buy PSF than it is on a new
Is it
launch.
because it's an older building next to it, or?
Resale PSF prices are always going to be lower than if there's a brand new development that's going up right next to where that resale.
But then you're
older
waiting
condominium.
3 years, or?
You're waiting 3 years, but they build in the future price. So yeah, that's just how it is.
And
here.
it still
You
gets
don't-
sold out within.
Still gets sold out because again the payment plans are different, so they can put down less. You're not committed financially until, because you have the sort of
What's the average plan?
it's usually, so it takes 2 to 3 years, so from off plan. So it's a staggered mortgage payment, so you might pay 15% down cash,
Okay.
and then you don't pay much, probably like Dubai as well. You pay 10% when the foundations are in, you pay another
Like
10%.
construction linked then?
Yeah.
And do you guys have post handover payment plans as well, as to like, I don't want to pay the entire sum in 3 years. I want to pay that over the course of 8 years or 7 years or 5 years.
Then once it's actually been built,
You
then
mortgage
it's
it.
treated like a standard regular mortgage payment. Yeah.
Same as Dubai, though, you can, once it's ready, you can mortgage the remaining
Yeah.
amount and then you refinance it or whatever it is that you do.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And I have spoken to a lot of Singapore expats over the last 1 year, probably 100 plus conversations. And most of them on Sunday, because the sweet spot is to call them on a Sunday afternoon, right before they go to the BBQ or after they've come back from the BBQ. In Singapore, I've seen this trend where people love barbecues and they love Sunday pool days and family days, and on weekdays they go play paddle. It's a very common theme. So I think a lot of focus is on the amenities. So like every building here, like it's so high up in terms of standards of living. And that's why it's such an aspirational city for everyone around the world. You have a big pool, you have games room or kids play area, you have those meeting rooms, you have the barbecue area, which is a must, in houses, outside the houses. Yeah. In Dubai, we have seen a recent trend of this barbecue, paddle tennis pickup. I think every houses have pools and gyms, and that's very basic in Dubai as well. So it's an old building, a new building. It will have a pool and a gym and potentially a spa as well. That's also becoming very common. However, the newer buildings and like the CBDs of Dubai, or like the aspirational CBDs yet to come, now the newer buildings have sports complexes. So you'll have basketball courts and paddle tennis courts, which is such a big thing. And we have seen a trend of lagoons. People love water. So we have artificial beaches inside buildings.
Oh, wow.
And that's a thing that every single new building is trying to incorporate. So those buildings will rent higher and appreciate more because of the amenities. Are there any sweet amenities that you think people look out for in Singapore when they look to rent or potentially buy?
Always a swimming pool.
Always a pool.
Always a swimming
They
pool,
love the
because
pool.
I mean, Singapore, the weather's pretty much the same
Yes.
all year round. We have a monsoon, rainy season, usually November, December, but, the weather patterns
Yes.
have gone a bit weird recently. But yes, so always a pool. A gym is not so important, but in the bigger, newer condominiums, then obviously they're pretty decent gyms, but there are so many standalone gyms that people can join those. So yeah, a pool is always a must. And again, in some of the newer, bigger condos, they have, they try and outdo each other.
Yeah.
With sky gardens and jacuzzi areas and kind of workplaces and barbecue areas, but they don't tend to get used a lot here.
No?
Yeah. It's mainly the pools, but even then, quite often you can go and visit condominiums during the week. They might be busy between, say, 5 o'clock and 6:30 after the kids have come back from school, because it's too hot during the day. So people won't be around the pools during the day. And even at the weekends, everybody's busy doing stuff. You know, there's kids' activities, sports activities on Saturdays. And then Sundays, you know, you meet up with your friends. But pools are the main thing. And obviously new people, new expats coming into Singapore, especially those coming from Europe. You know, the fact that it's sunshine is just...
it's enough for them to go by. That's true.
Yeah.
I think
happy with the pool.
Happy with the pool.
Yeah.
That's nice. I think in Dubai I've seen people go to the beach at 40 degrees. Like, it's ridiculous, because they've come from different parts where they've not seen enough sunshine. So they're just happy with abundant sun, and they're happy to go to the beach and just lie down. And so it's very interesting. I think we have similar weather. I think Dubai is more on the extreme side. But I think it's still very similar in terms of living. Like, have you been to Dubai?
I have not ever been to Dubai, so I'm long overdue.
You are. You
Long
need to
overdue
come visit. And your friends, so the way that I know Juliet is that you're friends with my clients who have now relocated to Dubai, and they're in Dubai as we speak. So I think now you have a better...
Now I have no excuse.
You have no excuse. You have to come visit.
And I know you, of course.
Yes, so you have to come.
Yeah. But I mean, there have been a few people moving from Singapore to Dubai recently. Because again, we you know, over the years, I've seen this happen before as well. You kind of have shifting, you know, people. Some people might move to the Middle East, some then move to Hong Kong. Or, you know, so there's always back and forth. And then there's always people coming in from Dubai or the Middle East or, so...
And I do feel like the two cities are quite similar yet very different. And I think people love Singapore because it's so safe and clean and opportunistic and convenient and well connected. And I feel like Dubai does serve a similar purpose in terms of it's clean and it's safe and education's right on top, value for money is there. So I do feel like people think of Dubai as a second option from Singapore, given they need to move out. And that's when Dubai becomes like a backup for a lot of them, and that's when they want to invest first before they relocate. So it's been a trend usually, which is pretty cool. What's interesting, both of us deal with expats mainly, I think. And it's very, very cool to deal with them, because I think both of us might understand what they feel like. I'm an expat and so are you. So you moved here, it's almost been 3 decades. So Singapore's home.
More than 3 decades.
More than 3 decades. So it's more than home now. But how has it been to be an expat in Singapore and then calling it home later?
For me, I mean, Singapore has just been a wonderful place to live. I arrived with a 2-year-old, nearly 2-year-old from Hong Kong, and I had 2 more children here. The schooling system here was brilliant. The fact that we can have live-in help is amazing. That was just for a godsend. I've been married and divorced, so I was in effect single mother for many years. But again, I was able to work. You know, Singapore enabled me to do that with children and bring up children at the same time. So there's a lot of working single people, not just women and men, in Singapore, and it's just a fantastic place to bring up children. And there's been more and more that's kind of been developed and built here for families. I mean, when I came here, 30 years ago, there weren't so many activities and children's activities and things to do, but there's so much here.
I agree. I think anybody who thinks of Singapore thinks of families and thinks of it as a great place to raise families. I think when I moved to Dubai, I had this stereotype mindset about Dubai that's not as open-minded or diverse because I came from London. And London, because I've done university there, I've worked there for a very long time, it's very diverse because you're around people from Europe and the US and India and Southeast Asia have come to London to make a living and to build a life for themselves. Dubai did not seem like some place that has gotten there yet. However, when I moved, I was pleasantly surprised because a lot of people had moved to Dubai a lot before I did in terms of finding a career because there's no taxes and it's a great place for young people as well to build life. It's manic and chaotic and I think everyone thrives off it. You see a supercar in basically every street, in every traffic light, in every parking. You see beautiful skyscrapers being built overnight. and you just get so much inspiration and motivation from the city, because the ruler, who's incredible, has such a strong vision, and he's doing that time and again every single day. And when you think and put things into perspective about how we were a desert and it was all sand and that nothing existed, and we didn't even come from money, it's all done based on super planning, you just get so much more motivated to do more. And I think a lot more expats around the world have been seeing that, and they've been wanting to come to Dubai to build something of themselves, but also to raise families now. So yeah, it's interesting how these two places are very, very similar. And since you work with expats so much, has there been stories where a client has become a friend and potentially build more relationships? I think in our industry, we have to build that trust before we do anything, because investing such a big sum of money with us. So do you have any stories of some clients that have...
Oh, many clients have become friends over the years, and that's the beauty about, as you say, our business. It is very much built on trust, integrity, and building relationships.
Right.
So yeah, I've had many people who've come in just for a few years, and then they decide to stay, because a lot of people come for 3 to 5 years or 2 to 3 years. And it's such a great place to live and work and thrive, as you say. So they stay longer. So a lot of clients have become very good friends over the years. And yeah, there've been some kind of really funny stories as well over the years as well, with the way the market's been.
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of add this in, because I saw it in 2006. When a lot of expats were moving into Singapore then, and there wasn't the supply, places weren't built back then. And then in 2022, after COVID, everything opened up.
Right.
You probably saw that in Dubai as well, where the market was just crazy, because again, there wasn't the supply, there's so many people coming back, developments had been delayed, so they weren't coming on stream. But the two differences is back in 2006 is we would turn up for viewings, for rentals.
Right.
And there would be people writing out checks, because of course back in the day you'd write out checks, and they'd be writing out the deposit checks as you were bringing your clients into view. And then, which was just mad. And then even 2 years ago when it was crazy, I remember, because we had a lot of people coming in from Hong Kong. Thousands of people came in from Hong Kong because of the COVID rules and everything that was going on there. But I remember going to a particular property in Somerville Park. So Somerville Park is a very old, spacious condo. It's got tower blocks, it's got townhouses. And we were looking at a 3-bedroom maisonette, which was on the market for 7,500 Singapore dollars a month. So 3-bedroom, it's a walk-up apartment. And I remember my clients had flown in from Hong Kong. We literally only had 3 properties to see, because there just wasn't anything on the market, because everything was getting snapped up by people,
right
taking
away.
them without even seeing them. And we turned up at this viewing, and there were about 25 other people viewing. There were agents with their clients. There were, direct people looking, and the owners were there. It was just pandemonium. And I can remember my clients basically walked in. They said to me, "Juliet, we want this place. You have to get it for us." I can remember thinking, oh, God,
no pressure.
This is going to be impossible. But they were one of those, of course, the budgets in Hong Kong were higher back then. I'm not sure if they are now, but they were then. So they had quite a healthy rental budget, which was higher. So I think, we walked out and I literally put an offer in straight away. We ended up getting it, but we had to pay, it was about 2,500 over the asking price to get it. And I can remember thinking felt so bad, because, lots of people were losing out, because of course people were coming in with these big budgets, and especially from Hong Kong, and kind of just taking all the places and then pushing the prices up.
Right.
Because then, of course, if one transacted at sort of 9,500, then that set the benchmark, because that's very much how it works here, because we have very transparent data that's available here. So the government actually publish all the data for the rentals, so you can see. There's usually a time lag of about 6 weeks. But you can see what something's been rented at. So I remember feeling really awful though at the time, even though we got the apartment, and they're very happy there. But yeah. So going back to your point, a lot of clients do become friends, which is really nice, because then obviously if they then move on elsewhere, you still keep the connection and still keep in touch with them. So that's nice.
That's lovely, and I think it's very, very important, especially in our industry,
Mm.
when there is no time for anything except work, because we have to work around the clock, because we work when they get free, we work when they are working, so we never off. I've only been doing this for a year. I was working in tech sales before, and I had two of my own companies, so I've not been doing real estate for a long time. And for the 1 year that I've been doing, and I've been only doing Singapore clientele, I have been able to go on trips, but my phone has never been off, and I've never been able to even take 2 hours off without looking at my phone. It's been a lifestyle change, and I'm not complaining. I'm so grateful to be able to do what we do. I think it's awesome. However, it might take a toll sometimes when you cannot plan 3 hours off or just take a massage. I have been texting people when I'm doing a massage. So it's been awful. I've had to leave the massage just like half an hour early for like a quick meeting. Have you faced similar things, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, it can be very, very stressful job. It is 24/7. But over the years, I've developed quite strong boundaries on, when to kind of not be looking. I don't have any notifications on my phone. It's up to me to pick up my phone and check. But I have certain times that I won't respond after a certain time in the evening. But yes, it's a sort of six or 7 day a week job. But you have to love it. I love what I do. I think you do as well. But I'm very passionate about what I do, and I love what I do because I'm finding solutions for people.
Yes.
And it's all, generally speaking, it's a positive experience. And again, over the years, I've learned how to hopefully spot perhaps, specific characteristics in people, tenants, landlords, other agents. You kind of know who to work with because of the relationships that you build up over the years. Right. I know a lot of the agents and people who work in the industry here, and I'm quite well known, so it becomes easier, I think, as time goes on. But I think you do have to put boundaries in place. Yeah, I mean, if I was going for a massage,
you would not.
I would not have my phone with me.
That's what ideally one should do anyway.
So if I go to the gym and I'm working out with my personal trainer, my phone is in my locker. Oh, wow. For that hour.
My personal trainer hates me.
No, I that is my time. So my phone is in my locker. However, if I go away on any break or holiday, it is never a true break or holiday because you're still working. You can't afford not to
answer.
You miss deals, or you're in between, different stages of different deals, or you miss a new client coming in. So no, it's that sort of an industry. But I think if you love what you do,
it's okay.
It's okay.
I agree. I think people think that it's absolutely manic what we do because it's so busy. Yeah. But I feel like you truly have to truly enjoy what you're doing to then make it all worth your while. So yeah, I'm still happy to take my phone during a massage.
Try leaving your phone.
I'll try. I really will try. No, it's really cool. I do feel like it's this sense of honor that you get, that you become a part of something so big for someone. And someone buying a house is one of the biggest achievements of their life. And them trusting you with it and having you take that responsibility is a very big sense of trust. So I just feel like being such a big part of somebody is such a big day. And you should just be happy and just do your best to make that possible in the best way possible. So yeah, it's pretty, pretty cool. We have been speaking for a while. I do want to leave everyone with potentially any advice that you potentially might be giving to anybody out there wanting to own a house.
Well, again, in Singapore, my core business and what I do mainly is rentals for expats. So the majority of expats coming into Singapore, and these are very different, all different nationalities from anywhere in the world, they will be renting. So we help people find 1-bedroom apartments to a sort of 7-bedroom
Good class bungalows.
good size bungalow. So the budget ranges, anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000. The average rental budget here is probably between sort of 6,000 to 8,000, 9,000 for a family. But I've also helped people with budgets of 40,000 a month. So they're CEO levels. I mean, so it's anywhere in between. So as I know the market inside out, I can really help people find places very, very quickly. And the one difference with the Singapore market here, with regards to any other market, is the landlords hold the deposits here. So it's very, very important for especially new tenants coming into Singapore that they have a reputable agent representing them all the way through. Because there are lots of stories and people read all these stories. There are some landlords who will try and hold the deposits and not give them back at the end of the 2-year tenancy. So you have to make sure you are covered all the way through.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a big, big difference. Whereas in the UK, Hong Kong, I'm sure in Dubai, deposits go into an escrow account.
No.
No? Not in Dubai?
No.
Okay.
It goes
into
landlord.
Okay, so here it goes into the landlord's pockets.
But then you have a tenancy agreement and the HRE and other documents.
Yes, we have those here.
But then that still doesn't stop them from taking...
No.
Oh, wow.
Some
no, it's not.
very, very small percentage. The majority of landlords obviously are very honourable. But there are always those who will try and kind of...
They need you.
Yeah, well, they need that. Exactly. They have to have proper representation. And the majority of our tenants always get their deposits back, minus maybe a few agreed, things that are taken out. So it's very important to have the right agent working for you.
Also, somebody who has just come to Singapore, like they do not know much about the city, right? So having somebody who has been here for such a long time and knows the insides outs of every single area that they can put their finger on, I think it's very, very wholesome, because then they can get such a deep insight into what potentially they would want, and you can help them get the right thing. So
yeah,
I think that's the key. I think in Dubai, it's the opposite. I think in Dubai, you have 30,000 brokers.
We have the same number here, 32,000 real estate agents here.
The issue is that the churn out rate is very high and the barrier to entry is quite low. So you'll have hundreds of them becoming an agent, even somebody who's driving a taxi or somebody who's working a full-time job or somebody who's a chef. All of them might part-time be real estate agents because it's rewarding to be a consultant in real estate. But they leave the industry even earlier, like in 6 months, 7 months, because they wait for that one check, one deal. Once that one deal comes through, it pays for the entire year's salary. So the trend is that one deal goes through, they don't really care. And then they're like, okay, I'm short now. I'm going to go back to my home country, chill, go on a vacation, maybe come back for another deal if that goes through another 6 months. So you have very, very few people, the top 10%, the top 8, the top 1% who's there for more than 6 months. And then people who actually close 3, 4, 5, 6 deals a month. So the quality is so low that people do know you if you are quite up there, even though you're very young. And I think there are very few people in Dubai who have been doing this for a very long time. So I think as opposed to the experience in terms of years, it's very much how much do you do in the time that you've been here. And I think the reason that I do only Singapore and that makes it so much easier to tap into this market is because a lot of people deal with anyone and everyone because they just want that one check. I think very, very few people actually target a country, understand what's the issue with that country, why people are relocating to Dubai, and then understanding that and seeing if Dubai can actually solve that problem, and then going from them from 1 to Z as opposed to making that quick deal. So truly focusing on that relationship building, but truly coming here so often, meeting them and seeing that I'm a real person, I'm not going to run away tomorrow. So I think that's the difference with the industries in the two places, which is very cool.
Well, again, Singapore has around 32,000 real estate agents. It's quite difficult to become an agent here. You have to be Singaporean or permanent resident. So foreigners cannot be real estate agents in Singapore. The majority of agents here will only transact maybe 1 or 2 deals a year, and the majority will be working in the HDB market.
Which is
the subsidised housing. So there's fewer agents who work in the private market.
That is such a great insight. It's interesting, Juliet. So in Dubai, we also have a license. Of course, I am licensed. There are a lot of people who have never given that license. The issue is that the investors, they don't know much about the Dubai market, and because there's so many of us, they travel to countries on road shows and they put up a hotel and then they invite people. There's lack of knowledge with investors about if they should work with somebody who's a licensed agent or not. Majority of people in Dubai who have potentially sold a deal have done it without having a license in the first place.
Wow.
Which is a big issue. So they do it on their friend's license or something like that, and they just put the deal through. And they might have known about 3 areas or one project, and they might have given them like 10% commission. They're like, okay, I'm going to sell this now. And they know everything about the project, but nothing about Dubai or the history of Dubai or anything like that. So the barrier to entry is very low as compared to Singapore. So anybody who's an agent in Singapore is like, okay, you've done a lot to be here. In Dubai, anyone can just be an agent, which just makes it so much more difficult to find the right one.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of word of mouth and referrals that go a long way, because you don't want to be dealing with a bad one and then end up with a property
It's the same here. It's word of mouth referrals. It's I mean I get busier and busier every year.
Yes, it's a good problem to have.
Exactly, it's great. But yeah, you do have to be obviously very professional and be that much better.
Right.
But as I said, the majority of agents here will maybe work for their auntie or cousin, just do a couple of
Help them
transactions a
out,
year.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's very, very
so it's not so, it's a very different, how CityProp kind of works in the industry is very different. We're very, very well known in the expat market. We've just won one of the top 5 best real estate agencies in the Expat Living Awards.
That's big.
which was
Congratulations.
great.
That's awesome.
2024, so that was good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you guys have been doing really, really good with the expat community. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we're very well known.
That's awesome. I think the podcast is called Brick by Brick. And whenever I host these sessions, I do ask this one question to every single one of my guests, and that's, it takes a lot to build wealth and to build a foundation, to build an apartment or like a GCB, like a good class bungalow. And you step from the foundation and you put one brick and after another. What's that one piece of advice you would want to give out to anybody around the world who's watching this with us, for them to build wealth and start laying the foundations for that one brick, so that they can buy their dream house wherever they want in the future?
I think it's consistency, and if you're building wealth in any industry or in any investment, make sure you're not in debt.
Yes.
Make sure you're not in debt, because a lot of people do rely on credit card debt and that sort of thing these days around the world.
Right.
So you can't build wealth if you're trying to pay your credit card bill off. So get out of debt and, just build it slowly.
What do you think of people leveraging debt to then own houses? Is that different?
I think you can get into potentially very tricky situations if you do that. I'm much more cautious than that. Yeah. I would make sure that you don't have any debt, and then you can build investments and invest. There's lots of different places to invest, but real estate is always a traditional known investment for people. It's an emotional investment for people.
Yes.
But yeah, I think
that's very interesting. I think just to end this conversation then, I think a lot of people think, and there's so many reels on Instagram these days about, yes, you only pay 20% down payment, use the loan, use this, and then have the rent cover it all. But I think one thing even I warn and make my clients conscious about is, what if the rent doesn't come for a year? What if COVID happens? What if something happens? Yes, we will use leverage if you need to. However, we need to make sure that you're still good for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
If that rent doesn't come through, we're not going to rely on rent or the bank, because it's a very big investment and we cannot leave you hanging in the middle. So I think that's absolutely a great piece of advice.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Juliet. I think it was so insightful to know more about Singapore real estate. I think if you want to talk about your socials and how can people get in touch with you, we can do that now.
Okay. Well, CityProp is on Instagram, just under CityProp, and myself, Juliet Stannard. You can follow me.
CityProp is CITIPROP.
Yeah.
Amazing. Anybody you know in Singapore, they'll probably know her. So I think it's an easier way to get to her. As far as me, you know that I run an Instagram called Malika in Dubai, and all of my socials are the same. Mallika in Dubai. So I will see you on Instagram, and so will Juliet, if you want to get in touch with her. For this was Malika signing off from yet another episode of Marfa Presents Brick by Brick. I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.